So with that, we're going in alphabetical order. With that, we begin with Habacher Atamim. Menachem Mendel Azoulay put a lot of effort into his presentation, and we certainly look forward to hearing and sharing what he's come up with. So you got to unmute yourself. Go ahead.
Yeah. All right. Hey, everybody. Okay, so today I'm going to be talking about the significance of the yarmulke, the Kippa, on why we do it, because it's actually pretty interesting because it's not mentioned anywhere in the Torah. It's not even in the Gemara. It's not clearly mentioned anywhere that you have to wear a yarmulke, but it does. However, sometimes in the Gemara, like there's like stories and situations where it says that you have to have your head covered, you can't have it uncovered, but it doesn't say anywhere like in the Torah or anything about actually having one. So it's pretty interesting, like to know why. So I'm going to start with Gemara Kedoshim Daf Lamed Alef Amud Alef. Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi says that a person is not allowed. He uses the word Isser. A person is prohibited to walk 4 amas with upright posture, because the reason being because God's presence is everywhere in the world, and you can't just walk as if you own the world. You have to like be bent a little bit batal. So he just like says that, and then comes Rav Huna right after that. Rav Huna says, he like adds kind of, a person isn't allowed to walk 4 amas with exposed head, uncovered head. Reason being because God's presence is always above his head, and therefore you're not allowed to walk 4 amas with the uncovered head. He says this right after what Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi said. Okay, now before I explain everything about this, I'm just going to say 2 other stories in the Gemara about stories where people have to cover their head and stuff, and then I'm going to explain everything after. So in Kedushin also, the story of Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak, where his mother was told that he was told by a stargazer or something, that naturally this kid is his impulse to steal and stuff. He's naturally like a thief. So his mother obviously didn't want him to steal. So what she would do is, as a kid, she would always tell him, cover your head. Always make him cover his head so that he has Yirah Shamayim, he has fear of God, so he shouldn't come to steal. So one time, Rabbi Nachman bar Yitzchak was studying under a palm tree, and his covering fell off. Right then and there, he looks up, he sees dates on the tree, and goes up and takes some. Okay, next story comes where Chachamim and Rabbi Akiva are all sitting down, wherever in the Beis Medrash, where 2 children pass in front of them. One of them had their head covered, and the other one didn't. So on the one that didn't have his head covered, Rabbi Akiva says this crazy thing. He says that kid is a mamza benida, like a very out of this world, like this kid's a mamza benida for just having his head uncovered. So they actually went to check, and the kid was a mamza benida, like a pretty strong thing to say, and someone for just not having his head covered. So we have these 3 Gemaras. One of them where Rav Huna said about 4 amas where you have to have your head covered, you can't have it revealed. Second story where the mother Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak would always make him cover his head as a kid so that he shouldn't steal, so that he should have Yirah Shamayim. And 3 where the child had his head uncovered, and Rabbi Akiva called him a mamzer menida. Now, what all these cases share in common, all these cases about covering head, they all share in common is that the whole purpose, the whole function of a Kippa is basically to bring awareness of God, and that you should fear God. It's all like the same function, all these stories. Like you see the story of Menachem bar Yitzchak, it was to bring Yirah Shamayim to him. Like Rav Huna said, the reason is because God's presence is above your head. You should be aware of it. So they all have the same purpose, all these stories, but none of them actually say anything about it being a Kippa. They just say a head covering. Okay, so now the first and more simple way of understanding all these 3 Gemaras is something called Midas Chassidus, which it doesn't mean that you have to do it, but it's something extra that you can just take upon yourself. Like you don't have to cover your head, but the Midas Chassidus that you should cover it. That's the first more simple way of explaining the Gemara. Like for example, in the case of Rav Huna, he didn't use the word Isser like Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi did when he was talking about walking with this. You shouldn't walk with an upright posture. You're saying you should walk bent, right? So he didn't use the word Isser. He just said, adding to that, also you shouldn't walk 4 amas with a revealed head. So simply understanding that would be is that you don't have to, but it's better if you cover your head. Also, the case of Menachem and Yitzchak, his mother, were always like, she was scared of him to steal, so she was worried, so she would always make him cover his head so that he shouldn't come to steal. But like, it's not something that like, you had to do. She just like wanted him to wear it. So yeah, that he should have Yiras Shamayim. So again, simply understanding that it's just Midas Chassidus that is like better to do, but you don't have to. But the third case is that one kid had his head covered, the other one didn't have his head covered. Like, I mean, it's not something that everyone did, obviously. So this goes according to the opinions of like the Ramah, the Rambam, other people also. But yeah. Now the second way of understanding these Gemaras is actually when it's actually being an Isser Din, which most people actually hold, like the Taz, Yosef, Tzemach Tzedek, they all hold with this. The second thing is that it's actually a Isser Din. You actually have to wear yarmulke, and yeah, it's a din. So like with the first case, Rav Huna adding to Rav Shlomo Levi, is that the fact that he added, it's just like you flip it the other way around, like the way he said before, just flip it the other way around. The fact that he was adding to what Rabbi Shlomo Levi said is that he's actually agreeing with the fact that he said in his case that it was usher. He's also saying that in this one it is. That's why he was adding. This is what the Torah said. Now the Tzemach Tzedek adds that even according to the opinion that say that's Midas Chassidus, that you don't have to wear it, he means that only within 4 amas, like saying the words that Rav Huna said was that you shouldn't go 4 amas with a exposed head. So the Tzemach Tzedek explains that means within 4 amas you shouldn't go with an exposed head. But past that, everyone would agree it's a din. The Midas Chassidus is within 4 amas, you shouldn't go with an exposed head. And also another thing he says is that 4 amas doesn't just mean in distance, but it also means in time. You kind of sit down on the couch for 3 hours and not have your head uncovered. It's also the time it takes to walk 4 amas. You have to have your head covered in that time frame also. The story of the mother covering Rabbi Menachem Yitzchak's head, if it was just something that she was just trying to get him to do, then what would be the new thing of her making him wear it? If everyone wore it, what would be the thing of like her making Rabbi Menachem Yitzchak specifically that he should always wear one? If something that everyone did. Obviously, he was already wearing a yarmulke, and what this thing that his mother was trying to get him to do was something extra to his yarmulke, which is called a glima, which the Maharsha says that she would get him to wear a hat that's a little bit heavier, so that he should always be aware of God's presence above his head, which is something heavier, so that he should always be aware. But he was still wearing a kippa under. It was just something extra. Tzemach Tzedek says something else. He actually learns this out from the words of the Gemara. The Gemara said, the words of the Gemara was that his hat fell off, and then he saw the palm tree, meaning that he didn't see it before. So the hat that Rabbi Menachem Yitzchak was wearing was actually kind of covering his eyes. He didn't see it, and therefore when it fell off, that's when he saw the tree and stole some. So these are just 2 ways of like showing that his hat was more than a yarmulke. With the third case of the story of Rabbi Kippa and the Chachamim, with the children that passed by, and one of them had his head covered and the other one didn't. The question is, if it's just a Midas Chassidus, I mean, what would be such a great chutzpah that this kid wasn't wearing a yarmulke? I'm saying like, okay, he wasn't wearing it. So you can answer and say that basically, that in front of Chachamim it's a din, but when you're not in front of Chachamim, then it's like a Midas Chassidus. So the whole Isser din would be that it's in front of the Chachamim, that's why the kid was doing something so wrong. But again, you can't really say that sometimes it's not needed to wear a kippah, it's just a Midas Chassidus, and sometimes it's an Isser din, like 2 opposite extremes. Sometimes it's like it's that bad that you're like called the Imam Zamanida, and other times you don't need to wear it at all. It's like 2 like really the opposite extremes. So obviously it's a din, and that's why that's what the chutzpah was for the kid not wearing a thing in front of the Chachamim. And the Tzemach Tzedek adds that even if you're not going to say it's a din, it's a mitzvah, which I'll get into that in a second. Yeah, so to conclude, whether you're the opinion of Midas Chassidus or you're the opinion of it being an Isser din, whether you say that it's just something extra that you wear or that you actually have to wear it, whether any of the opinions, everyone agrees that nowadays it's a din. There's 3 main reasons why nowadays you have to wear it. So the Alter Rebbe, Gra, and Taz, they all say that it's a din of chukas hagayim, that you shouldn't go in the ways of the gayim. Gayim, what they would do is like when they sit down and stuff, they would take down their hat and sign respect, So therefore, Jews have to always have it on. Just do the opposite because you're not allowed to go in the same ways as non-Jews. That's one reason. So that's one reason why nowadays you have to always wear it. Another reason is back in the day, I guess like all the way back, that sometimes people would have their head uncovered, or sometimes they would have it covered, whatever, because the heat of the sun. A lot of times they would have their head uncovered. While nowadays, since everyone wears a kippa, it follows this new law, din of tznius, which was basically something of your body that's usually covered has to always remain covered. Since people always wear yarmulke, nowadays it's already a din of tznius, which has to remain covered. This is what the Alter Rebbe says. So Tzedek says a new thing, which is pretty interesting, that the Anshe Knesset Agdela established a bracha called Torah Conference, which means a yarmulke, because it doesn't mean anything else. We already have a bracha b'tzitzis and tefillin and everything, so it's about this bracha was established for a yarmulke. Therefore, it is a din to wear yarmulke because of this bracha. And even if you're going to be of the opinion that says it's not a din, at least you have to agree. Even if you're going to say it's a mitzvah to wear yarmulke, according to like the Rambam and Rambam, whatever, you at least have to agree that it's a mitzvah because there's a bracha for it. So now I'm just going to finish off with what the Rebbe said. Rebbe answered in an igros to someone, which was saying about being midas chassidus, the yarmulke, whatever. So the Rebbe said, whether you're of the opinion of midas chassidus, whether you're the opinion of it's a din. Now there's a whole new thing for the yarmulke. It's not just about covering your head and uncovering your head. I mean, it is about that, but there's a whole new thing. Nowadays there's it says that Hashem chose you as a nation, right? Yarmulke is like a symbol. It already became a symbol of Judaism. Everyone wears a yarmulke. Everyone knows Kippa is a symbol of Judaism. But if you don't wear a Kippa, you're basically showing that you're trying not to be recognized as a Jew, and you're like going against being Jewish by not wearing it. You're trying to show that you're against it. So nowadays, there's actually a whole nother din of it actually being that you're going against basically like Klal Yisrael and Judaism. Anyways, that's it.
Thank you very much. Menachem was very, very well delivered and very much appreciated. And from there, we go